going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's the Miss Lee Experience. Welcome to another show where it's going to be an experience.
Tyrell. Pick the topic, any topic, we prepared, we ain't scared, we discuss it. We be talking sex, lies, yeah, whatever. My homie JT, D&B Sports Center. Miss Lee bringing guest after guest after guest. And we can we demand our respect. Check out the check, yeah, we eat. This ain't a podcast, this is the life that we lead. From relationships, politics, you hear it all here. Got stilettos and combos and fashion right here. If you wanna throw the lead, hit her up right quick. Or you can download on iTunes, you know she that. Got the show on YouTube and all, man, I swear she the My homie T-Wade with up, know we up in this bitch. Feeling champagne, celebrating this year. The next year, after next year, after next year, after next year, after next year, for the Miss Lee Experience. Whoa.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned we have a jam-packed show tonight, and it's so important that we have these various conversations, about marriage and love and relationships, because the other side of the realm of marriage is, the vows and things that you take. And I alluded to that earlier in the show. And not only, talking about sickness and health and all those various things that can affect a marriage and two people, tonight is a really huge night, an official radio broadcast tonight. An announcement went out earlier this week with a new partnership with the Miss Lee Experience and the Scleroderma Foundation in the greater Washington, D.C. area. And we are now a media partner of Scleroderma here in the D.C. area. And what's so important with this movement for me is that if you look at the colors of my logo, if you guys didn't know and wasn't aware, the colors mean something. The colors represent lupus. The purple is for lupus. My sister has lupus. She's a new lupus warrior. And, we're doing, I want to do some work with lupus as well. And my mom, who is an avid listener of the show, she is a Scleroderma fighter. And I think it's so important that we create awareness, we get the word out, we talk about it, because a lot of people of color, we're walking around with this illness and this diagnosis, and we really don't know what's going on. So we have a doctor out of the DMV who's I think she's with us. She's with us.
I'm here.
Her name is Dr. Virginia Steen. She is the professor of medicine at Georgetown University Medical Center. She has been a part of all of the trials, 15 ongoing. There's a lot going on. And she is on the medical advisory board for the National Scleroderma Foundation, and she's received the Lifetime Achievement Award as well. So, Dr. Steen, welcome to the show. I'm so excited.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes. So tell everybody a little bit about what scleroderma is, who might be hearing about this for the very first time.
Sure. Scleroderma is one of the autoimmune diseases, and as you mentioned, lupus. It's in the same family as lupus, and actually the most common of all of these is rheumatoid arthritis, but then lupus, and then scleroderma is less common. It affects a little bit older than lupus patients, so they're more middle age. Again, predominantly women, but a few more men than lupus. Lupus is probably 10 times more common in women than men, and scleroderma is probably 5 times more common, so there are a few more men. And as you did say, it does affect people of color more common. So I'm, as you mentioned, a scleroderma expert. Being in the Washington area, I see a lot of African American scleroderma patients, and because of that, have been interested in how it affects people of color differently than it does Caucasians, and it affects them earlier, and it is more severe. So the disease itself is extremely varied. it can vary from extremely mild disease to extremely deadly disease and everything in between. And so it's really a challenging disease because some people just have a little bit of skin thickening. So scleroderma means hard skin. And so some people just have a little bit of skin thickening on their fingers, have this thing called Raynaud's where their hands get cold in the cold, and they turn colors. They turn real pale or white or blue, and they can get sores and be very, very painful. And other people have very severe skin thickening all over their body and every single organ involvement. So it's a very wide spectrum. And African Americans tend to have more severe disease, particularly in the lung. We don't really understand why they have more lung involvement. Some of it is probably the genetics. The genetics, just in general, there's a slight difference in the type of scleroderma that African Americans get compared to Caucasians. And so the types of scleroderma that they get tend to affect the lung more severely. But also there is some data that suggests that there's maybe an enzyme that African Americans in general have that make them have more difficulty handling the inflammation in the lungs. We don't quite understand it, but it leads to more severe disease, and we just try to be very aggressive at treating it so we can get it under control. There's no cure for this disease, but we have lots of different medicines, and I guess, as you mentioned, we have lots of different trials going on as well. It's actually a very exciting time for scleroderma because there are lots of trials, lots of industries interested in scleroderma right now, and it's for us treating scleroderma. As I said, it really is an exciting time because there is no cure. There is medications that we can use to treat it, but none of it is really approved by the FDA or say this is a drug that's approved. So we have to fight for everything that we get.
Wow, and it's and I will say, like my mom, she's been diagnosed, almost 20 years, and like when she first. Like she told me, but I think it was so new, and she was learning about it, and it was like, wait a minute, what does this mean? What happens? Because it was literally like a night and day kind of thing. Like she told me this, I'm not going to be able to work anymore. My body's changing. I got to change my eating habits. I have to, listen to my body. My body might reject me eating this, but I can eat that. And I got to be careful in the sun. I have to be careful when it's hot, when it's cold, when it's this, when it's that. So it was just interesting just to see, from where she's come from and all of the different tests and and they put her on chemo, then she was off chemo, then she went through so many things, and I think, like you mentioned, Dr. Steen, it was just trying to figure out what works. Let's try this, let's try that, but and it's like it was just so stressful as a child to, a teenager to kind of see her go through all of these changes, and because it's an uncommon disease. A lot of doctors don't have a lot of experience. So it's a rheumatic disease. So rheumatologists are really the primary doctors that take care of these patients. And yet a general good rheumatologist may have a total of maybe 10 patients that they've seen at all. And each one of those patients is going to be completely different than the other ones. And so that makes it really hard for the general rheumatologist to see patients and to know what the best things to do. So we've tried to have what we call scleroderma centers around the country, and around the country there aren't that many. We're fortunate, at least in this area, to have several of them. There's obviously one at Georgetown, and there's also a very large one at Hopkins in Baltimore.
But there are some parts of the country that don't have any. So you go into southern Maryland and Virginia, and those people all have to come up to D.C. or Maryland. The next one down between D.C. and Maryland, there's probably not anything until South Carolina.
Wow.
So that's a long way.
That's
There's
huge way.
No There's no, maybe a little bit in North Carolina. There may be someplace in Duke that there are some rheumatologists that have a little more experience, but they're not actively involved in any trials or anything. So it really is important that all sclerodermas try to be seen by some place or a scleroderma center so that they can know at least that they've seen somebody that sees lots of scleroderma patients. And it really makes a difference because I see 250 scleroderma patients a year. So, I mean, that's a big difference in seeing 10 or 15. So, the experience of seeing those kinds of patients, we can tell the patients, and then they know that they can contact us if they have a problem, or their doctors can contact us. And so, plus, if they are interested in participating in trials, so we have those things available for the different aspects of the disease. And we know what at least is available. We can't guarantee we can get it because, again, it's not approved by insurance, and we fight with the insurance companies all the time to try to get the medicines that do work, even if, they're available, they're just not approved.
Right. So how would someone, so what would be some symptoms? Like if someone doesn't know that they have
So
it?
I think the biggest symptom that the most common thing that people have is something called Raynaud's. And Raynaud's is where their fingers turn colors in the cold. They're very sensitive to the cold. That when they go in the cold, they even the freezer section of the grocery store is uncomfortable. So their fingers turn maybe real pale or white or purplish or blue, and they get very, very cold and uncomfortable. That's called Raynaud's, and that happens in all scleroderma patients. They may get puffiness in their fingers. They may get joint pains, swelling in their fingers. Their rings may change size, or they may get joint pains all over their body. So joint pain, Raynaud's, and you mentioned the digestive system. It's very common to have the esophagus involved, and so to have the esophagus involved, they may have heartburn. They may have what we call reflux, where the acid backs up into their throat. They may have difficulty swallowing. Things may get stuck in the middle of their chest. And those are very common symptoms. And so people sort of, it's not anything to worry about, a little bit of reflux, I ate something wrong. But that can be a very serious symptom in this disease. So those are sort of the most common joint complaints, Raynaud's, and then the GI symptoms. So those are the initial symptoms that happen. And then there are lots of blood tests that we can do to tell what kind of scleroderma patients have.
And that was new to me because I didn't know there were two main, categories when I was researching more about it. And it can be difficult for a patient to kind of explain it to family members and friends because they might not understand it, and it's kind of hard to, embrace it themselves and kind of adjust their life. So when I was doing my research, I was like, wow, there's two categories, so to speak, of it. They affect your body differently. So, and like you said, one is more severe than the other. And, I'm glad that there's so many more resources out now than I think there were 20 years ago.
There definitely is. And the local Scleroderma Foundation chapter, as you've mentioned, has really been a great resource. they have their own website, and it's on all the different social media, and they have yearly big educational meetings and then local support group meetings. The national organization has a big meeting that's going to be in Arizona this summer, but every year it's someplace else. It's been in Tennessee, it's been in Washington, it's been in various, places that are closer to us. Right now, the one in Arizona is going to be a long ways away, but it is at least it's warm there.
Yes, and they would love that because
we're dealing with the cold right now. Scleroderma patients don't like the cold.
They don't. They don't, and it's so interesting. When you have a patient who embraces it, they know what they have. They walk in it proudly, and it's hard because my mom. She'll wear gloves in the summer or in the spring. She's like, it's cold, and I'm like, okay, Mom, you got your gloves. She's like, I got my gloves, and she cuts out some of the fingers. She can do things, and she got her shades. She's very aware of how her body reacts to the temperature and to certain foods, and she cheats on her little diet sometimes, but she gets it, and it's important that when you are faced with a rheumatology type of diagnosis, it's you have to be aware of what your body what works good and what doesn't work good, and because your body feeds off of it too, and she does good at that. She does. She got her gloves wear all the time.
Well, she's dealt with it for 20 years. She's figured it out.
Yes, she does. So I know it's the testing and the trials and all of that, and I know it's exciting for you and all of the ones that you've been a part of. But there really is a lot of red tape in trying to get something passed through the FDA, because I guess to a regular non-medical professional, we're like, look, if it's helping, let's just do this thing, let's get this out there to help people. So it is
hard. No, I know, and it's very hard because some of the drugs that we're using right now for scleroderma are, particularly for the lung disease, are older medicines, so they're now generic, but they're still expensive, and so it's still hard to get them. One of them is a drug that's been used for transplant, and it's used for lupus, it's used for transplants, and it's not approved for the indications that we want to use it for. And so it's even though I write these letters to the insurance companies, and I list all the articles, the controlled trials, everything that shows that it works, and they say, no, but it hasn't been approved by the FDA. But no drug has been approved, and so it's only brand name drugs that the industry will send to the FDA to get approved. But that's not going to happen for one of these older drugs. So I don't know what the answer is. We keep trying, but it's very frustrating, and we keep. I think some of the private insurances are a little bit better, but the Medicare has its own rules, and it's been very frustrating, but we're trying.
Yes, you are. And there's I'm just glad that, and I announced this, on my social media, and, my mom, she's texting me now, all these names of medicines, and she's like, yes, that's me, that's what I take, and this, and she's all in, but it's, but it's really important to be aware of the resources and the doctors, and, I'm glad, that this area has a lot of those resources for patients. And, the chapter in this area, they're doing so many wonderful things. And I'm like, oh, there's a walk coming, which Carol is going to be on in April to talk about the walk and, to donate and help create awareness. And, because there's a lot of people out here that might have the symptoms but don't know why. And they are afraid. And they're like, oh, it'll go away, and it's
well,
important to know where
if they
you can
have
go.
the symptoms, it's very important to see. I think, you should go to your primary care doctor first of all, and if they say, yes, those are of concern, then you should see a rheumatologist, and the rheumatologist will know what blood tests to do to try to confirm it. And if they do confirm it, then I think that if they have rheumatologists are, the community the general rheumatologists are very good at making the diagnosis. They don't always know exactly what form and what to expect, and so once the diagnosis is made, then I think seeking out a specialist of scleroderma, either at Georgetown or at Hopkins, I think since we have so many in the area, I think it's in the patient's best interest to at least see somebody once, and then they can work with their primary rheumatologist in there. And that if they're doing well and they're doing fine, then that's fine. But at least they've seen the specialist, and their rheumatologist can contact the specialist if there's any concern or questions. And it happens all the time. I had a call today from a patient that I saw once, and she now has kidney crisis, and her doctor had no clue what to do with it. And so the husband reached out to me and said, will you help, because the doctor's not doing anything. And that's really sad that the rheumatologist didn't know what to do, and the patient's still in the hospital. And so I contacted the rheumatologist, but at least they had seen me once before, and so they knew to contact me. And that's the kind of thing that's really important, so that they have a contact if there is problems.
Yes. So, you said you see over 200 patients roughly. So what type of basic, lifestyle changes do you recommend for a newly diagnosed scleroderma patient, as far as like eating healthy, working out, or, just behavioral changes? Would you say to someone who, would first come to you and get that news that that's what they have?
Well, part of the adaptation to living with scleroderma is to deal with the cold, as we talked about. Yeah. The dietary changes are to deal with the reflux and what bothers certain foods that you have to deal with, avoiding and not eating before you go to bed, because basically the esophagus doesn't work right, and so you can't lay down flat because the acid will back up into your throat, and so adapting to that. But certainly eating healthy, exercising, staying healthy. Exercising is very important. And even patients with lung disease, even patients with a lot of joint complaints, exercise is very important. So I'd say leading a healthy lifestyle and, doing your best as far as what you can. Now, you may not be able to exercise like you used to, but certainly, walking to some extent and keeping active. So a lot of people have a lot of pain and stiffness in their hands, but it's really important to keep them moving, to keep them active, to keep their body active. Because if they don't stay active, they have a tendency to get stiffer. And then when they get stiffer, they can't move. And so a lot of patients with scleroderma that have very severe scleroderma get what we call contractures. They can't move. But the important thing is to try to keep moving, particularly early on in the disease.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I just want to thank you, Dr. Steen, for all your work. And I know you're still working, diligently and impacting so many people's lives, as a huge resource. And, I definitely love the fact that this is the first step in just getting the word out and educating, my listeners and the public about scleroderma and how they can learn more and help and be a support to those out there that might have the symptoms but are afraid or don't know what steps to take, So all of my listeners out there, Georgetown University Medical Center, Johns Hopkins. I mean, if you're in the DMV, that's your go-to, okay? Go to the website,
Okay.
you know, and yes, and you know, definitely reach out. And, you know, we definitely, Dr. Steen, I want to have you back on, you know, again, and, you know, so we can be abreast of what's going on and the trials and the progress, and, you know, because I think the more we know, the more we can help those out there as well. So I'm
Okay.
excited. I thank
All
you
right.
for your
Well,
work.
thank you very much for helping us.
Yes,
Okay.
you're so welcome, and thanks again for being on the show.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Steen. She is one of these great doctors out there doing some wonderful things with scleroderma. And, you know, like I mentioned, the Missly Experience is a huge part. We're an official media partner. Yay! We're going to, you know, we got a walk coming up. I'm going to participate in the walk. So, you know, and T's going to hook us up with some T-shirts. T don't know that yet. He know it now, though. T, you going to hook us up with the T-shirts. We're going to get that popping.
All right.
And just, you know, and just make it do what it do. And just some other, just based off of my mom and what I've seen her go through, and, you know, just some physical changes that can happen. The skin is tight. You know, it's hard for advanced patients to open their mouths wide, so there's dental issues. So there's even work coming into play with helping these patients go to the dentist and have specialized dentists, because, you know, us going to the dentist right now, open your mouth, stick out your tongue, move your, take the, you know, do the thing, they can't do that, because when your body produces too much collagen, it really impacts the elasticity of your skin. So those things are shrunken. So, and it affects all other things. So it's a very interesting disease. But we got a lot of people out there fighting it, man. They're making it do what it do. And, you know, and I just wanted to get my mom's story out there. I shared the newsletter on my social media. I'm going to constantly share it out. If you want the newsletter and you're listening to the show, email me at justmisslee@gmail.com and say, hey, I want the newsletter, and I will be happy to email it to you. So the more people know about it, the more people, you know, we can get the word out, man, and get the awareness out there. And I want to do the same thing for lupus. I have a lot of lupus warriors out there, too, you know, and it's important that we know. The more you know, going back to the NBC commercial, the star, the more you know.